Hey everyone, I'm James, and this is Covetous Imp Gaming, and this week we're going to talk about introducing your players and their characters into your homebrew world successfully. Please do those internet robots a favor, like this video, leave us a comment below about videos you'd like to see in the future, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you're alerted to our future content, and check us out over on Facebook and Patreon. Those links are down below. So, big disclaimer before we get started. These are just my ramblings. I am by no means an expert at world building, and you don't need to be an expert at world building to do this successfully. These are just things that I've done and the tips that I can give to you. And if you can take even 10 seconds of this video and get something out of it, then I feel like I did my job. So before we get started, I want to throw out just a little bit of a DM tip, and that is that it's okay for you to make a mistake. First, the biggest thing is if you make a mistake in game, in combat, the chances that your players are even going to notice is slim to none. And if there is something more major where they call you on, hey, like, didn't that guy die like 3 sessions ago? Then, own it and adjust fire and move on. And, your players will respect you for owning your mistake, but chances of them noticing that you made a mistake are very slim. And you'll know it, but they won't necessarily notice it. Now, before I get into my first real big topic, I want to say, and this is jumping ahead into future videos, but as far as your world building goes, your story is very important. You need to know at least where it's going to begin and where it's going to end. And that your ending is the villain. Now, I will cover story stuff and villain stuff in future videos. But as far as your world goes, it doesn't need to be all fleshed out. It doesn't need every corner of every dungeon, every inch of the continent doesn't need to be a finished product. You can start with just a town and the area surrounding it, and have that be where your players are going to actually begin their adventure. From there, I would at least have an idea of what's going on in the 4 cardinal directions around your town. To the north, there's this going on. To the south, there's this. East, west, these things are happening. So that when your players are done in that first town and they say, we're going west, okay, you're encountering ogres or whatever it's going to be, you know that that's what's going to be there. And then you can plan that part of your world. So the characters in your game don't all have to be from this town. They could be from anywhere. And that gives you the freedom of handing off part of your world building onto someone else. And at the same time, it helps pull your characters and your players into your world. If you have a dwarf and they say, oh, I live in that mountain over there, that's not on your map yet, then you know that a mountain has to go over there. And, my dad mined for ore and precious metals and precious stones, then you know that all that stuff probably can also come from there. And it builds that part of the world for you, and you just need to get your player from there to here. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But then when your player gets back to that point, they're going to know, oh, I'm from here. I used to live here. I was raised here. I know my way around here. I might be familiar with the person who rules this part of the world. And they'll be connected with your world more than if you just said, oh, you're a dwarf, you're from here. But I don't have any information about here yet, and maybe I'll give it to you later. So if your world is a little bit more fleshed out, you've got a map, you've thought about what's going on in each corner of the world. This is what's going on here. This is what's going on here. This is, this town's in shambles, what have you. It gives you the opportunity of planting plot hooks in depending on where a player is starting. And while they might not be strong enough to deal with this threat right now, it gives them a reason to come back to where they're from. And coming back to where they're from, they know that people know them. And again, it helps that world feel lived in. And that's a big thing for player agency and just feeling like they're part of this world that you've created. It's not your world, it's their world. You just happen to be the overseer of it. So with my newest campaign that I just started, it is my homebrew world. It is something that I've worked on for a little over a year before I even introduced it to my players. So I had a map done. I had a rough idea of the things that were happening all over the world. I had a session 0. We did character creation. I put the maps out on the table. People were able to ask questions about, what's going on here, what's going on here. And where we left it was, take the information that you have about what's going on in these areas and go write your backstory. And taking that backstory information, again, I knew where I wanted my story to begin. I had a session with each player to get them from where their family was from or where they grew up to where I needed the story to start. But along the way, they got those important plot hooks that will bring them back to those places at some point in their adventuring career. And at least as far as it's gone so far, it's gone pretty well. So again, don't take this as gospel, but these are just tips that I've come up with that have worked for me so far. So that's going to wrap it up for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. World building is very much like the rabbit hole. How deep you choose to go is up to you. But there's no wrong way to do it. Next week, I will be covering 2 pre-written adventures, pre-quests that can be found on the DM's Guild. I've run both of them twice now and have really enjoyed both of them. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.